was a kid, I used to dream what it would be like to live somewhere far away from Detroit. But I realized the city was a part of me. It was in my blood. And I would do anything to make it a better place.
Good and evil. Sometimes the difference between the two is a sharp line. Sometimes it's a blur.
We're gonna make a difference. I know it doesn't feel like it sometimes, but we are.
You have a motor mouth.
But you see so much.
I hear things.
You know what they call stuff like that? Gifts. I'm gonna train you. Use it.
You asked interrogative questions out of my face. Gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric, and today is a double soul day. Yes, it's the soul of Detroit that you've come to know and love on a weekly basis, or at least tolerate. And we're going to be joined shortly by Charles Soule, who is, where do I start? He went to an Ivy League school for undergrad. He went to an Ivy League school for grad school. He plays guitar. He was a successful lawyer.
He's everything you wish you were.
He's a novelist. He's a comic book writer, and now he's involved in the new Star Wars. So basically,
everything you wish you were.
We hate him, but we're going to try and ride his coattails to new Zenith, which actually Zenith is that'd be a great idea for a comic book series. So Charles, while we talk about some people who aren't so grand, maybe you could knock out something, and I could
see. I'm sure comic and novelists love being pitched ideas.
Yeah, I could probably letter it or something, or I don't know, but think about that. Think about that. But first, I have to tell you, we're making some news today on the Soul of Detroit because I am calling for the immediate resignation of Detroit City Councilman Gabe Leland, and my campaign is talking about that today. Hopefully, we're going to be getting some opportunities to engage with the media on that. But I've been exposing Gabe Leland's problems, let's just say, to be kind, since 2015. And for the last few years, I've been revealing that he's doing things like voting for millions of dollars worth of contracts for his then girlfriend's companies, that he was demanding bribes from businessmen.
That would be Gasper Fiore's daughter? Is that the one?
It was Gasper Fiore's daughter. She has moved on to greener pastures.
Good for her, man.
I've been talking about his failure to file campaign finance reports. I've shown a businessman who said that Leland demanded bribes, and after he was indicted for that very conduct, I revealed the secret plea deal he struck that's probably going to keep him out of jail. And I also revealed, and as you heard on this show, we played the secret FBI recordings of Councilman Leland at a strip club, demanding or negotiating how those bribes would be paid. It's a strip club he drove to in a city car. I'm not saying that this is another sign of his incompetence, but it's a strip club that had no strippers in it. So that was kind of like, dude, what are you doing? And he was harassing the bartender, asking her, if she would entertain them. So all around a bad dude. Now, I've done all these stories over the last several years, and most of them in 2020, yet Councilman Leland remains on Detroit City Council, where he can still vote on deals, where he can still collect a salary, where he can still have a city car, where he can still employ whoever he thinks is worthy of Detroit taxpayers' dollars, which, given his judgment, I don't have much confidence in that. But not only is his resignation long overdue, what's so outrageous is in March, he told Deadline Detroit, he started to get cocky. He said, I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at, so stay tuned, as they say, somehow suggesting that he might yet run for re-election when, once he does plead guilty to this felony, which his lawyer says he will do, he's going to be forced to leave office, and in fact, under the Michigan Constitution, will not be able to run for office for another 20 years.
Well, he's already been arraigned. I don't understand why you can do that, and everybody knows it's going to happen, but he's still on city council making decisions. It's ludicrous. Why? Where are other candidates for city council on this? Because you're taking a stand and saying he should resign immediately. Any other feedback from them?
I don't know that other candidates are talking about this. What's more concerning is that his colleagues aren't talking about this. I've been asking them for almost a year now, when is it time for Councilman Leland to go? And they are completely and utterly mum on the subject. Meanwhile, Leland is telling Deadline Detroit, I'm proud of what I've done. And this is the coup de grace. He says, I didn't crawl into this job, and I'm not going to crawl out of the job. And this is when he announces he's not going to. Well, guess what? Crawl out of the job. Somebody should be pulling you out of the job. And so if Mr. Leland doesn't have the character and the decency to resign, I think we already know what the answer to that is. I think it's time for his city council colleagues to, you want to defund something? Defund Gabe Leland.
Amen.
Take away the budget for his staff. Remove him from whatever committees he may be sitting on. Because remember, when he was demanding these payments, it was because he was the chairman of a committee that could either hold up a deal or put a deal forward. So he was using his position for his own personal gain. And please take away the keys to that city car that he has, because this man, we don't need him driving any more strip clubs to try and solicit any more money to which he is not entitled. So, Gabe Leland, it's time for you to go. It's been time for you to go for a long time. If no one else is willing to say it, I'm going to say it. I couldn't say it when I was a reporter. I thought the reporting spoke for itself. I'm no longer a reporter. So forget that I'm running for office. I mean, if you can, or if you want to send a donation, that's fine too. I will not accept it at a strip club. But it's time for Gabe Leland to go. Somebody has to say it. It's just so obvious. I'm surprised and disappointed that I'm the first one to say it explicitly. But Gabe,
it's so obvious.
Exit stage left.
Yeah, beat it.
Exit stage right. Do the snagglepuss and get out of here, because you are bad medicine, and the people of Detroit deserve so much more. When you put self-service in front of public service, you got to go. And in fact, the charter of the city of Detroit was strengthened about a decade ago to make it easier to remove elected officials who were bad actors. And it is beyond my comprehension why that mechanism has not been put into effect to get this canker off of Detroit's face, to get this barnacle off of the ship of state. I could go on with the metaphors, but
get rid of them. Get out of there.
Charles is the writer, so we'll let him throw a couple of jabs in just a minute. But so anyways, Gabe,
it's time for you to go.
Beat it.
Good.
And you know what? When they take away that city car, now that I think about it, he's probably going to need a new ride. Perhaps Roy O'Brien Ford could sell him one. You know, that's where my mom, who's never taken anything she didn't deserve, got her red Ford Focus wagon. 111,000 miles strong. She's still a satisfied customer. For 75 years, Roy O'Brien has been taking care of customers at the corner of 9 Mile and Mac in St. Clair Shores. If you don't feel like going there, why don't you visit him virtually at royobrien.com. That's ROYOBRIEN.com. You can check out Fast Track, which lets you choose your vehicle and options. You can pick your deal, lease it, finance it, or pay cash. Get the value of your trade-in, apply for financing, and schedule delivery of your ride. If you go in person, they will keep you safe. They mask up, they respect social distancing, and they have a large and spacious waiting room where you can wait while maybe you just get your oil changed, maybe get some new tires. You name it, they will make you safe, they will keep you safe, and they will put you in a sweet ride, new or used. They got a lot of whips on the lot. Check them out. To learn more, visit royobrien.com or call 888-566-5851. Be sure to tell them ML's mother's son sent you. And if you see Gabe Leland there,
yeah, he's not going to get more free car repairs from them.
Yeah, just keep a social distance from Gabe Areno. Just even when we're outside the pandemic, it's probably just good advice.
And that big exhale you heard during that read was Sean. Sean just moved on it, just slid on into the show today.
Sean is with us. Sean, it's so good to see you.
I like your tie. The skinny tie. Are you going to wear a tuxedo T-shirt next week? Perhaps a piano keyed.
He's all dressed
outfit.
up today.
I like it. It's a nod to your new wave. What's the word there? I don't want to say roots.
You're on a roll.
Your new wave.
I'm not going to bail a guy out who's trying to tear me up. Come on, brother.
No, I'm not
Finish
tearing
it.
up. I like it. I love it that you take 1986 style and you say, you know what, that's style right now. I love it.
I just like your
You
hoodie.
are who you are.
I love your very attractive hoodie, which is available at the Drew and Mike
The
store.
hoodie I'm wearing has your name on it.
That's why he loves it.
That's right.
I am an idolater of Mr. Mike Elrick.
And we know he dressed up today because Charles is on the line. He's
Yes.
very jealous of Charles's career.
And Charles is
Why? Because he speaks Chinese?
is very patient. Yeah. I think both Mandarin and whatever the other Chinese language is. It's Charles. Is that right? Is there
others?
So I speak Mandarin. I don't speak Cantonese very well. I lived in Hong Kong for a while growing up, but Cantonese is a real pain in the ass, and I decided to do Mandarin, which is also a pain in the ass, but it's a little less of one. So that's what I ended up studying. But this is about Detroit, and we just heard an ad for a car dealership, and so I figured maybe I had some car things I wanted to mention. First of all, what kind of city car is it? Because you seem very fixated on this car. Is it like a Rolls or something incredible, or is it, do you have any idea?
No, I think at the time it may have been a Crown Victoria, or it could have been the new Ford Explorer XLTs that city council members got. Top of the line Explorers. And one of the things about these guys and women on city council is they get these rides. They don't have to pay for gas. They can gas them up at the city yard. They don't have to pay insurance, which is a major savings for anyone in Detroit because I mean they kill you with that. And it's a ride. You need new tires. You need to get, you don't need to bother with a great dealership like Roy O'Brien. You just go to the city and say, hey, can you fix this up? And there was even a point when Christine Beatty was the chief of staff. She had a Crown Victoria and she took it back to the garage because she said, I want to get a new stereo in here. And she was the mayor's chief of staff. So they put a new stereo in her whip for her because she was the boss and she wanted a little higher quality tunes.
All on the city's dime.
Well, rank has its privileges, I guess. That's wild. But I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see what I don't know enough about Detroit politics right now, other than to say that I grew up in Detroit. I lived in Birmingham for a long time and kind of different spots. And it sounds like very little has changed in Detroit politics from what I used to hear about growing up. The city's the city, right?
Not enough has changed, but even a gentleman with your amazing imagination would be hard-pressed to come up with a storyline like we see playing out in the city of Detroit on a regular basis. And just for folks who haven't been following us on social media, we let you know that Charles Soule is our guest. He is a writer, novelist, musician, attorney. He's written Daredevil, She-Hulk, Death of Wolverine. He's got some novels that are doing very well. And he's also got a new Star Wars treatment out, which I have to ask you because I like Star Wars, but are we up to episode XXV970 or are we back to like sub 2?
Because the last one we saw was episode 9. So this would be the next thing coming out will be episode 10 if and when they ever do it. But the thing that I just did, the thing that I helped spearhead was it's a new Star Wars storyline called The High Republic. And it's like all the Star Wars stuff, except it's set about 200 years earlier. So it's got an all new set of characters. There's a few people who show up like Yoda. Yoda's really old, so he was around back then. But by and large, it's all new stuff. So all new characters, all new ideas. So the idea was to bring in fans who might not know everything about every bit of every story that's already been told and just say, here's a new, fresh start. Jedi have lightsabers. There's the Force. There's good guys, bad guys, whatever. But you can just come in cold. And so Lucasfilm asked me to help build that about 2.5 years ago. And so I did with a group of 4 other kind of high-level Star Wars writers. And the first project from that, which was a novel that I wrote called Light of the Jedi, that launched on January 5th of this year and landed at #1 on the New York Times bestseller list and stayed on the list for about a month, which was pretty exciting. And it's still doing really well. So that's my latest big project. But I've been doing stuff with Star Wars since 2015, which has been a real joy. I'm a huge fan of that stuff.
So with the High Republic, shouldn't that be like episode 420 Dank?
Yeah, I know.
Oh boy,
I've heard
what a
those
bad
ones.
joke.
I've heard those gags. Yeah, I know.
He's already heard them.
Yeah. Well, look, the thing about Star Wars fandom is that they are very involved in a really good way. So if there's, the minute something's announced, you get a million Reddit posts about it. You get a million posts on your Twitter or whatever. So yes, I've heard the gags about the High Republic 420, the whole thing. But it actually means that it's like a golden age, like it's a time when everything was kind of good in the galaxy and whenever things are really good, you just figure something's going to come to take it all down, and that's what happens in the story.
So this is
pre bad guy shows up, and it's all exciting.
Pre Senator Palpatine and all the bad dudes, pre Anakin, pre everything, except Yoda.
Pre all of that.
Yeah, Yoda doesn't have scoliosis.
Chewbacca's dad.
Chewie's dead? Is that what you said?
Chewbacca's dad.
Dad. I was like, well, that doesn't make sense if he'd be dead. But yeah. Well, that's just such a huge responsibility to take up, a franchise like that. And the amazing thing for comics, from my perspective, is the continuity, because you've had so many writers and graphic novels and just branches and that come back. How hard is it to pay attention to a continuity, say, when you're doing Star Wars, whether that's before, but maybe picking up, Death of Wolverine or Daredevil?
Look, it's part of it is that I grew up with all that stuff. I've always been a comics guy ever since I was little. So I've been sort of going through this incredibly lengthy, PhD education in Daredevil or Wolverine or X-Men or Superman since I was about 5 years old. But you also, when you work for Marvel or DC or Lucasfilm or Star Wars, whatever, they have kind of resources that you can access to learn about the continuity and shore up any weak spots you might have. But then it's really just, the fun thing about researching comics or Star Wars or anything is you get to read a lot of comics or watch a lot of Star Wars, and that's stuff I love anyway. So, there's a lot to keep track of. And if you mess something up, the fans definitely let you know it. But there's also a support system in place to help you from making any errors that are too big.
So how do you make the narrative move on sort of the glory days of the Republic? So I told you I was going to pitch you. I think I've got a book proposal on Kwame Kilpatrick's Rise and Fall to make a fantastic graphic novel. But at one point I was trying to turn it into a screenplay, and so I read a book on screenplays, and they said that every time the story starts to sag, make something horrible happen to the protagonist. That unless there's drama and conflict, and the hero meets the challenge, then the hero has to decide, is he going to take on the challenge or abandon ship, or is the challenge going to kill the hero? And then we find out whether the hero meets the challenge or survives. And then there's sort of a culmination. If times are good in the Republic, that kind of feels like a boring story. How do you keep it going?
You'd think so, right? But it's when things are at their height that there's the farthest they have to fall, right? So it's and the other thing too is that things might be good for some people, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily good for everybody. And the people who they're not good for, who don't like this power structure, start gnawing away at the foundations. And it's really about kind of, the balance of power and who has it and how it's used. And one of the things that's really fun about this time is that since it is kind of a golden age, the Jedi have been able to spend a lot of time focusing on studying the Force. And so they're not distracted by anything. So they're really good at using the Force, and we get to see them do some really amazing things that we haven't really seen before. So, if you like Star Wars, even if you only know it a little bit from movies you might have seen once or twice, it's really a good place to start. There's going to be, it's a sort of a program that's going to run for about, for years really, with lots of different stories. And it all starts with that Light of the Jedi novel that I did. So maybe pick that up, see if you like it. There's projects for all ages. Mine's an adult novel, but there's also young adult, middle grade, little kid stuff, all sorts of things coming out. So if you like Star Wars, it might be worth a look.
And so people who are well versed with all of the Star Wars canon, will they see some foreshadowing in here? I mean, are you putting some Easter eggs in there where people say like, oh my God, that's where Lando Calrissian got his first Colt 45?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I don't know if we'll do that particular reference, although I get it.
Well, if you do, you know where to send the
is,
check, because we got a record here. That's
that's
intellectual property, the soul of Detroit, not the soul of Star Wars.
Exactly. I don't know. Those the movies we saw, episode 1, 2, 3, like things weren't great in the galaxy, and they're certainly not good in the first set of movies with Luke and all that. So we want, if we're starting from a golden age, we want to set up kind of the breadcrumbs that will lead you to all of the history that happens later. So it's all, the thing that's really fun about it is that it's not just me sitting in my studio where I am now, just sitting and typing by myself. Like I'm with kind of this brain trust of people at Lucasfilm, because we really want this to be big and succeed. So it's building a whole new world out using some tools that exist. But man, it's a blast just to I've been to Skywalker Ranch out in California a few times to work on this. We've done a lot of really exciting, I don't know. It's a really big project. It feels like we're making a trilogy of movies here, even though we're not making, these aren't movies yet. We'll see what happens. But right now it's novels and there's some animated content and various things, but it's just getting bigger and bigger all the time. So it's really exciting.
Does Lucasfilm, do they have a vault of, say, characters that they were going to use for certain things? Because I know Marvel does. They have a massive vault of these comic book heroes, most of them made like in the 40s, some of them just laughably bad, like the Doorman, and I think DC's got an arm fall off boy, just really weird and random. Does Lucasfilm have that? And have you ever gone through the Marvel ones to see, here's a character that's underused that I could write for?
I mean, I'll say, yes to both, right? Well, one of the advantages of writing for a character that people don't know as well is you can do stuff with them. Because if you're writing, say, Darth Vader, like I did a big story about Darth Vader for Star Wars a couple years back. And Darth Vader, people know a lot about. And so you can't do as many things about him. Like we already know who his mom is, right? So there's stuff, you can't tell that story. But if you're making up a story about, I don't know, leg fall off boy, whatever, that character nobody knows about, nobody cares about. So you can put that character through the ringer, you can do whatever you want. And so there's a freedom in it, but also nobody gives a shit about leg fall off boy. So you have to write a really good story in order to make people care. The advantage of Darth Vader is, even though there's rules around him, people really like Darth Vader and really like reading stories about him, and will pay for a story about Darth Vader, even if they don't know what it's about necessarily. So, it's always kind of a push and pull between freedom and, the art and commerce, right? So, you want your book to be something people will buy and pick up, or your story, but you also want to be able to tell the story you want to tell. And sometimes those goals are in conflict a little bit when you're working with the really huge pop culture icons, but it's kind of a rush to be writing Captain America or Superman. Hell, man, I like the first time I wrote Superman dialogue, or Superman, opens his dress shirt. Clark Kent opens his shirt and there's a Superman symbol. Like you get a rush from that. Luke Skywalker turns on his lightsaber, whatever. Those things that we've all, we can feel those things in our heart. And when you get to tell stories using those moments, it's pretty powerful.
That is pretty cool. And feel free to not answer this question, because you mentioned Captain America, and I personally feel like he's always been a little overrated. Is there a really popular comic book character or Star Wars character that you just like, enough of this character already?
Oh man, of course, characters get overexposed and they have storylines that need to be.
What's the one for you though, Charles? What's the one?
See, that's the thing, right? I'm not
Scrooge McDuck.
I think for me, every character has a place. You can do something cool with every character. And that's like from the beginning of me getting into this career, which really started in like 2013. I started writing a character for DC called Swamp Thing, which I know and love, but is not a huge, that's not Batman, right? Like people might know that name tangentially. There's been some stuff. There's a TV show a year or two ago, but like Swamp Thing's not massive in the way that Batman is or Wolverine is. But I approached that job as if Swamp Thing were Batman. And the first job I got writing in Star Wars was a book about Lando Calrissian, who I love, who is a super cool character,
very cool.
But is also not Luke Skywalker. He's sort of secondary in some ways to some of the main leads, even though he's beloved. But if you take whatever job you have and you write it as if it's the most important job in the world, the fans and the readers can generally feel that to some degree. And so that's that's how I approach every gig. So when you're asking me, who's the person who should be retired or put in the box, I don't know. I mean, I know that needs to happen sometimes with characters, and there are characters that I don't know that I would have as many great ideas for. But any job I take, I'm gonna approach it as if it was my first and my last, because you never know.
So how did you get into this? I mean, you've got an Ivy League degree. You went to Columbia Law School. Sounds like you were doing pretty good as a lawyer, and you decide to do this. I mean, I imagine it's something that you were doing the whole time on your own time. But when you said, I think I'm going to make did your parents call you up and just say, hey, dude, wait a minute?
No, it was... So,
what the hell?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the Ivy League thing a bunch of times. I see you got a U of M flag behind you there. That's a pretty fine school too. So
no, it's not. It sucks.
Amen.
I went to Michigan State. People bust my balls over this. In fact,
That's mine. That's all mine.
That's a Wisconsin thing that's turned upside down. I'm a Spartan.
I love that it bothers you.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
No, I just mean, that's somebody paid those tuition bills, and I said, okay, so I sent this kid, and he's writing comic books. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I would think is cool, but I can see a parent saying, hey, Junior, let's get back to the Supreme Court here.
Right. Well, here's what I'll say. I made the choices I made in my career, sort of, I don't know, judiciously, not to make a stupid pun, but like. So yeah, I went to Penn for undergrad. I went to Columbia for law school. That opened up doors and gave me opportunities that were really significant. And I'm not going to say here that I wasn't really lucky. I obviously really, really was. But the thing about good fortune is that, you can't just say, okay, I got lucky and then stop. You have to then work your ass off to make sure that good fortune turns into whatever doors that can be opened by that bit of luck you need to use and open for yourself. And so that's kind of what I did. And when I was in undergrad and law school, I always really loved doing creative stuff. I was in a bunch of bands. I did writing. And I always knew that the path I wanted to have was a creative one. And my parents knew this. It wasn't a shock to anybody. But when you get an opportunity, like in particular Columbia Law School, which is very hard to get and opens a lot of doors you might not be able to have otherwise opened as easily, you kind of take it. And so I practiced law for 15 years. I went to Columbia, graduated, got a job at a firm in New York City, worked there for a while, kind of trained myself up, then opened my own practice, and I ended up doing immigration law for well over a decade. Wow. So yes, I did get into a creative life, but it took a long time, and I was super cautious about it because I had a family and all these things. You want to make sure that you're not going to just make an irresponsible choice that throws away some of the advantages you have. So. And being a lawyer, especially at kind of a high level and especially at running my own practice, gives you a lot of skill sets and network and resources that enabled me to get into my creative career kind of with a lot of tools in my toolbox. So, whether that's discipline, whether that's being able to sit down and not stand up until something's finished, whether that's being extremely detail oriented, whether that's being able to run a business, like a lot of creative people have no idea at all how to run a business. They just sort of start making their thing and hope things work out. And that's not the way it goes, right? You have to have a sort of a global approach to having a creative career. And I think being a lawyer first, and particularly running my own business as a lawyer, gave me a lot of skills that have really paid off well. So, as far as my parents being annoyed with me, I mean, I was an attorney for 15 years. Like I think, and clearly I had some chops to do the creative career too, because, I'm doing it now at a pretty high level. So, hopefully most parents just want their kids to be happy. I think mine did. And I think they'd be pretty happy with where I ended up.
I just think it takes a lot of guts because you took a road that a lot of people, even if they wanted to do and had the opportunity to do what you're doing, they wouldn't, because they'd say, boy, I worked so hard to get here. How would I take this chance? It's, you didn't just work for a law firm. You started a law firm. So you're a guy who people were depending on you. And I just think that's really admirable. And I think there's a lot of people who are playing in bands on the weekend and doodling here and there who are just like, boy, I'd love to do this, but man, I'm so invested in this career. There's no way in hell I can turn back now. They're thinking about, I'm going to make partner. I'm going to be a judge. I'm going to have a yacht, whatever. And,
sure.
and here you are. And not only did you take the leap, but you look like you stuck the landing.
Well, yeah. I really lucky, a lot of luck combined with some pretty focused work over a long period of years. But the thing about that kind of thing is I would never advise anyone to blow up their career to just, I'm just going to go be in a band. I'm going to tour in a band, that's nuts. Right. So, and that's not how I did it. I took I analyzed the business I wanted to be in, which was basically being a writer at that time, because I figured, I love being in bands, I love playing music, but honestly, once you get to a certain point in your life, you're not going to be, touring 5 nights a week and stuff like that. So I realized, but writing is a job you can do for the rest of your life. And so I looked at novels, I looked at comics, I looked at sort of all of the different players, how it all worked. And I realized the comics had kind of it had a ladder within it. Like, you didn't have to risk it all on a project. You could do kind of a small comic and see how it went. You could self-finance that comic in a way that, like, self-financing a film is kind of impossible. I didn't have millions of dollars to spend, but I could come up with, I could scrape together a 5-figure number to make a comic book. And so I did that. And I put that out into the world and saw what the reception was, and looked at, the reaction of other people and other people who were in the industry to that comic. I looked at the reaction of publishers. I looked at the commercial reaction to it, which the commercial reaction wasn't much, but I was absolutely nobody at that time. And I was like, okay. And then I started hand selling that first comic at comic book shows all over the place. Like, I would travel around the country and network and meet people. And at this point, all of the investment was kind of low risk. Like, I just did this, basically in my spare time. But it did well enough that I was like, okay, maybe I can take a little, it's just like at the blackjack table, you're doing well, you maybe up your bet a little bit. So I upped my bet. And that sort of seemed like it worked well too. And all this time I'm kind of climbing up the ladder of the network of the comics business. So more and more people start to know my name. But I will tell you, I did not even consider closing my law firm until I had negotiated an exclusive contract with Marvel to work for them for 2 years at a compensation level that I felt would be enough of a replacement for my law income that I could scale my law firm back to about 20% of what it was, and still practice and keep the pilot light on the stove, I guess, just in case the comics thing didn't work out. And over those 2 years, I worked my ass off because I really wanted the creative life while keeping the law thing going. And at the end of those first 2 years, Marvel offered me the chance to re-up for another 2. And I said yes. And that's when I ended up basically, saying I will take no more new business at the law firm. I'm just going to scale off everything else, or scale down all the clients I currently have, so that I can do this full time and really give it the time and focus that it deserves. And also not be not focused on my law client, because I didn't want to do that either. You don't want to half-ass, a legal client, an immigration client, because you're too busy writing Wolverine or something like that. So, it was kind of, you start listening to what the world is telling you about the path you want to take, and if I had done that stuff, done all that writing for, years and nothing had come of it, and I put a couple comics out and no one cared. And it was like, okay, fun hobby, buddy. Then I would have stopped, I would be practicing law to this day, but the world started to tell me that maybe there's something here, and I listened to it, and I just doubled down and worked harder, and here I am.
Charles, can we get back to this idea? You mentioned several things you learned going through undergrad and grad school, but you mentioned sitting down and not standing up until you're done with something as a writer. And that's a very, very difficult thing to do. I think Mike can relate to that. I don't know, even Mark, maybe when you're writing Christmas thank you notes. Right? Was that something that's always been with you, or did you learn that? Because that is really, really difficult to do.
Yeah, it's a skill set. You have to sort of come up with a bunch of mental tricks to force yourself to not stand up until it's done. And also, I've got all these maxims I tell myself. One of them is, you don't have all your good ideas at once, and just get through the first draft, and just, make sure you feel like whatever goal you set for yourself is realistic and reasonable. So I know my pace these days. I know what I'm capable of, but so I'm not going to say I'm going to write 5 chapters of a novel in a day. That's stupid. But I might say, I could write a rough draft of 1 chapter in a day or 2 if things are really happening. And so then, a lot of that is just, it's like playing an instrument. You get to understand how your writing muscles work and what you can actually accomplish. But as far as the discipline of it, you just have to make a decision that you want it. And you think about the things that distract you from getting it. Think about the things that are in your way, whether that's looking at Twitter on your phone, which is a problem for me sometimes, whether that is, having your phone nearby you at all, whether that's, bumming around on the internet, watching YouTube, whatever those things are, playing games, you just try to get as many of those things out of your way as possible. And then I do a lot of what I would call pre-work too. So I work a lot in longhand. So I have a ton of notebooks. I have different notebooks for different projects, and I do a lot of work in those. Like back when you could go to bars, I would go to the bar a lot and just sit and have a drink and work in those. Go to the coffee shop when the weather's nice, sit outside. And so that starts to get this like set of ideas in your head. And then when it comes time to actually sit down and type the stuff and make it good and formal, you've already got a lot of the ingredients and the groundwork laid out. So, I feel like that answer is a little vague, but mostly it's just, don't bite off more than you can chew in the beginning, and like set yourself a goal that you can actually accomplish, and then really do your goddamnedest to accomplish that goal. And once you've done it, you've got this great feeling of, man, I did this thing. Let's see what else I can do.
So Light of the Jedi is the new one. If anybody wants to check out the website too, it's Charles Soule, and it's Soule is how it's written. Is Star Wars the focus now? Do you bounce around to characters? Because I know you've written for She-Hulk, and that's going to be a Disney Plus.
It is, yeah. I know a lot about that show, and it's going to be really, really good. I'm excited for that. I do bounce around a lot. I'm doing a lot with Star Wars right now. I'm also doing some other work for Marvel on some other projects. I have a lot of my own stories. I'm working on my 4th novel right now. I have 2 others out that I'm very proud of, in addition to Light of the Jedi. And I have a lot of my own like independent comic book series, which are basically just they're the same as novels that like a Stephen King book, right? Except they're comics that I put out with the artists that I work with, who are all really good friends of mine. And actually, in fact, you mentioned Roy O'Brien to tie it back to the sponsorship. I see he's in St. Clair Shores, or that dealership's in St. Clair Shores. The one of the new comics I'm working on that will be released later this year is set in St. Clair Shores, as a matter of fact. And the reason for that, in part, is that the artist I'm working with is my buddy Ryan Brown, and he grew up in Grosse Pointe, and his mom currently lives in St. Clair Shores. So we have hung out at some of the dive bars in St. Clair Shores in the past, and we figured why not pay homage to those wonderful establishments. So a lot of the opening scenes of the book take place in kind of a crappy made up dive bar in St. Clair Shores, which is fun.
Well, I think She-Hulk just bought a Ford F-350 with the dual axle in the back.
She doesn't need
Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
with the king cab, because she's a big girl.
Are you trying to do product placement for Disney Plus? Is that what you're trying to do?
And you know what makes She-Hulk look really good? Altus beer, but we'll talk about them in a minute. you may need more than a 6-pack if you're going to think about taking She-Hulk home from one of those dive bars. Did you go to Goodfellas on Harper? Or wait, can you name some of the dives you went to?
I don't remember. They all kind of, they sort of blur together, especially after you've been there for a little while.
Sabby's maybe.
It was like they had like the fish fry, $3.99 fish fry and a bunch of beers, and just sit there and you kind of bullshit about whatever you want to catch up on. I lived in Birmingham, and then I also lived in Grand Rapids for a long time growing up. And he was a Grosse Pointe kid his whole life, and now he lives in Chicago. So we had a lot of kind of Michigan stories to tell. And whenever I get back there, it's just fun to I don't know, just kind of remember what it was like being a Michigan kid, for sure. Like I've lived in New York for over 20 years, but I'm back there a lot, and I miss it. I miss that I haven't been able to come back in a long. It's been well over a year since I've been in Michigan, which is a bummer.
Well, there's a lot of great dive bars I could take you to talk about that Last King of Detroit project next time you're in town.
I'm sure you must get pitched everywhere.
Man, I think I talk about biting off more than you can chew. I think you should go. I don't think one graphic novel is enough for that. I think you should aim higher. I think you should do multiple volumes. I think you should do a biopic, a film. A 100 installment podcast. Just go big. There's a lot of material there.
What happened to not biting off more than you can chew? This feels like a setup for me here.
Well, look, I think I think when the subject is interesting enough and people will be fascinated, and you got nothing but time, assuming you don't, I guess maybe not. If you win that campaign, it sounds like you're in. Maybe you don't have time for this, but if that doesn't work out, this is your fallback.
I like it.
The film industry, the streaming services, they love taking comics and putting them on the screen in graphic novels. Is there a graphic novel you've written that you're like, this really should be put to film? This should be seen by the masses? Is there one that's near and dear to your heart? And what's the concept? Which one is it?
I've been very fortunate that all of my well, almost all of my independent projects have actually been optioned for development in film and TV. So that's my novels, my indie comics. You know, it's pretty fantastic. And some of them I've actually been hired to write the screenplays. So I think the one, and I'm choosing this one because I'm in the middle of it right now, writing the screenplay, and it's challenging, but it's really fun. It's called Undiscovered Country, and it's a story about like basically a year or two from now, the United States completely seals its borders, and like North Korea did back in the day. And so no one can come in or out. If you're in, you know, they give like a week's warning, and then they say, if you're in, you're in. And if you're out, you're out. Doesn't matter if you're a citizen, whatever, just completely sealed. And then the United States stays sealed for 30 years. And so no one has any idea what's happening in here. It's a black box completely. No, you know, the outer world has no idea. And so stuff happens, power gets reapportioned, all these different things go on. And then all of a sudden there's basically a signal that comes out from the United States, first one in 3 decades, saying, come see what we've done, you know, come see what we are. And so an expedition goes in, crashes in sort of the West, the American West, and has to do sort of an expedition through the vastly changed America to see what's happened in those past 30 years. And so that's called Undiscovered Country. And it's very much like kind of a road movie through a very, very different version of America that's really fun just to kind of see what's happened to it. And I co-write it with a good friend of mine named Scott Snyder, who's also a very well-known comic guy.
Yeah.
And it's drawn by our friend Giuseppe Camuncoli, who's Italian, which is kind of neat because he has a different perspective on America.
So when you're writing a screenplay, say for Undiscovered Country, do you have an actor or an actress in mind for a character, or do you try not to do that?
I don't always do it, but for Undiscovered Country, my co-writer Scott and I did, because we wanted to make sure that we both had the same kind of, you know, like directional heading on the compass for how we were writing these characters, because the way we're doing it is kind of splitting up scenes. So he might be writing a scene with these characters, and then I write one that's set a little bit later. But if my feeling about how they are is different than his, it's not going to line up. So when we started, we sort of fan cast the whole thing and said, okay, this is what this person feels like. This is what this person looks like, even, so that we could kind of write to them. But I don't always, because you can kind of, you know, you can get your hopes up almost. And then if it doesn't work out, you can be disappointed. I kind of, you know, casting is a really challenging thing, and I kind of leave that to the professionals. My job's just the story.
Well, She-Hulk, She-Hulk, watching the trailer, they definitely nailed the casting with and I forget her name, Tatiana
Maslany. Yeah,
she's so good.
She is great. She's going to be really, really good for it.
Is she green?
Well, when she's She-Hulk, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of cable, but
you don't watch any cable.
The thing about her is that she's a lawyer, you know, and so when she's lawyering, sometimes she looks kind of like, you know, herself. She looks just like a person. And then sometimes she looks like the 6 foot tall green version. It's fun.
So does she ever ask the judge for permission to treat a witness as a hostile witness and just say She-Hulk smash, and then?
You know, I never wrote that when I wrote She-Hulk, but I guarantee some comic book writers have that.
Okay. Well, we're here to help, Charles. You got to be running out of ideas with all these different projects going on. I mean, do you ever? So I imagine you have a lot of things going on simultaneously. Do you ever get to a point where the instead of these being threads, it becomes like a ball of yarn, and you have trouble, you know, picking up where you left off or keeping things straight, or one sort of conflates where you're like, well, then here's where Yoda turns green and, you know, and crushes the prosecutor. Whatever, you know, I mean, it's like, well, no, that's the different Yoda. That's Yoda Esquire.
I go through phases. Sometimes I'm working on a million things at once. That's how it is right now. Actually, it's kind of a pain. But I mentioned I use all those notebooks, so I keep my projects separate so that if I pick up the green notebook, that's because I'm working on She-Hulk or whatever. If it's the red book, it's Daredevil, whatever. If it's got a lightsaber on it, it's Star Wars. So that helps a little bit. I also try not to mix days if I can. So maybe Mondays for Star Wars, Tuesdays for comics, something else. But it does get complicated. I'm on, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different discrete projects right now, and shifting gears between them is hard. And it's a skill set that is one of those other ones that I didn't develop from lawyering. I just sort of developed because I didn't have a choice. When you start writing in comics, they tend to put you on a lot of books at once. At one point, I was writing 8 titles a month, and so bouncing between all that is a real mental workout. But you learn how to do it, and then you can kind of always do it. I don't love it. I kind of prefer to work on one thing at a time if I can, but that's just not where my career is right now. And I'm fortunate to have all these opportunities, and I kind of, didn't want to say no. And I got to say also, COVID has not helped. Like the pandemic and kind of all the weird anxiety and stress and just thinking about everything. You got to put a mask on, to do the most basic things, which I fully support and think is wonderful. And I think I'm glad we did it. I think it's the right thing. But, there's just another level of logistics to just being alive that is, it makes it harder to get down to the deep places where the good work comes from. So, it hasn't been the easiest year writing wise, but I've gotten a lot of stuff done and hopefully that'll just continue.
And do you have any outtakes where you had plot twists or characters that you would never want to see the light of day, but someday we may see, the Charles Soule cutting room floor where there's, I don't know, some character or some story where you're like, it didn't quite work out, or I don't know if the public's ready for it yet, or do you does that just become a new comic where it's like, here's Super Freak Show 7
of those things, and I've got a file on my hard drive that is specifically for those that I look at every once in a while when I need a little something, if I'm looking something to kickstart a project, or like, I wonder what's in there. Maybe there's an idea that's worth pursuing. I also have a full completed novel. The first novel I wrote, which I started right after I graduated from law school, and attempted to sell, and it got close to selling, but didn't sell. And so I was discouraged.
I know the feeling.
And that's kind of what pushed me toward comics. But so that's just sitting on my hard drive, and someday I could do something with it. But, as of now, it's kind of like there's this term in writing called juvenilia, which is basically a lot of successful novelists have a first novel in a drawer because they wrote it to get their first bad novel out of the way. And they don't really want to have it published because it's just going to sort of, take away the, something I wrote when I wasn't as good as I am now. I don't know if I want to be held up against the things that I write now. The last thing I wrote, again, to say it again, debuted at number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list, right? Like, I don't know if I want to put up something I wrote 20 years ago and have it held up against that. So if I ever did, I would go back in and heavily revise it and rewrite it and polish it up. But, those are also ideas that I cared about 20 years ago. Maybe I don't care about them as much anymore.
Well, Charles, I really appreciate your interest, but I think you're just way too busy to do this Last King of Detroit project with me. We can talk about it next time we're in town, but you're going to have to buy. That's just the deal.
Okay.
So,
anyways, the opportunity though. I appreciate the offer. It's always nice to be wanted.
It's. I didn't mess around with some juvenilia thing. This thing is a gem on the first crack. But maybe I'll cut you in on it when next time you're in town. So, Charles, thanks for taking. Tell us where people can find. I mean, your stuff's all over the place, but is there one sort of if you want to get caught up on Charles Soule, start here and then sort of follow the tentacles?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to do. I have a website that has a pretty robust list of my stuff. And it has a store where you can buy a bunch of different things, including signed copies of my work, whatever. So that's just charlessoule.com, Charles, Soule.com. I'm also very active on Twitter, which is also just my name, Charles Soule. And I have a newsletter that goes out monthly that you can sign up for on my website. So those are really the easiest ways to find me. When the world opens up again, I'll hopefully be at shows and stuff like that again. But just for now, I would say hit the website, charlessoule.com, or find me on Twitter.
Well, Charles, we appreciate you making the time to join us. Maybe I don't want to be too hasty. Like, we'll talk about this Last King of Detroit thing. I don't want to. I don't want to break anybody's hearts or crush any dreams.
It's got legs, man. I think that's a story that if you don't tell it, somebody's going to. So you should get in there.
I'm thinking multi-platform.
Don't tell him that.
Yeah. I've been even putting little parts of it in fortune cookies, so I'm not ruling anything out. But Charles, it's been great having you on. Hopefully we'll have you on again. Maybe next time you go to Lucas Ranch, you can do a +1. Let us know.
It's all about you.
Sure, that's what I'll do.
It's reported.
They're very cool about that stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I promise.
Super chill about it.
I promise not to mention Jar Jar Binks when I go, so we'll be good. But Charles, thanks again. Soule on Soul, Charles Soule on the Soul of Detroit. Doesn't get much better than that. And do we have anything? Probably not for Charles, but maybe for a relative of his who made this happen.
All guests appearing on ML Solo Detroit receive a 12-pack of Altus Lager.
Oh, he loves beer.
Next time you're in town, we'll save some of those for you, Charles. But thanks
Appreciate
again
it.
for coming on the show, and we'll look forward to,
thanks.
I guess, seeing you
Take it easy,
everywhere.
guys.
I mean,
Have a good one. All right.
Appreciate
This
it.
dude's a madman.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
So for those of you who aren't comic book writers, novelists, musicians, attorneys, writing screenplays, I forgot about that before, having #1 bestsellers, but you would still like a cold Altus, you can get one at, all kinds of great stores around. It's the Detroit Original that is back. It's locally brewed and owned. It's the original Detroit Lager. It was gone for quite a while, but it came back. And you know what it brought back with it?
What?
Flavor.
Oh, I love flavor.
So get some yourself. It's on tap at local bars. Get out there when you can. It's also on the shelves at your neighborhood store. And if you're not sure whether it's at your neighborhood store, it's nearby. Go to Altus, A-L-T-E-S, or Altus, some people say, .beer, and find out where you can get one. Altus beer. It's a do anything, anytime with anyone beer.
Nice.
Damn, there was
you upset you didn't sell your book?
No, it's not that he's upset.
No, are you kidding?
You pushed it.
That guy was dying.
You're spinning a little bit because
No, I just can't believe
that was what you wanted, right?
No, Charles was
All
so
that
interested
kind of-
in this project. I'm sitting here thinking, I think we may have the dream team.
No,
but you wanted to do 8 things at once and have them all be living a life in
told you
Brooklyn.
he's jealous of his career, and I am too. I would love
Actually,
to.
I
love to be that.
I
smart.
wanted to do 12 things at once and just have one of them work out.
I was going to say he tries to do 12 things at once.
Everything you've done you've done a good job, man. Come on, don't sell yourself short. By the way, he's not like a.
This is the setup. This is the rope-a-dope. Where's
No. There's no setup here.
It's the ultimate Sean, just to shit on you and then go, no, so you're great.
I'm not shitting. Oh, why? Because I like his skinny tie.
It's just how you are. Yeah,
like his skinny tie.
I don't remember this, Sean. That a little time away has done wonders.
It's like when Stephen A. Smith famously said about Kwame Brown, no disrespect. No, he said he can't play. He's a bona fide scrub. No disrespect.
Whenever anybody says no disrespect, it's full of disrespect.
No, absolutely. No, I was going to say real quickly, he didn't come across as a writer to me, but rather a builder or an engineer or somebody that just lays out the plans and I'm going to go A, B, C, D. I mean, and that kind of discipline and dedication is – there are plenty of writers that have that.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of writers
well, and he's a fan,
that don't.
too.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That,
No, he's very
stand up
methodical.
every 5 minutes and walk outside and think, what the fuck am I doing? I suck. I'm terrible. I'm
Yeah, I know.
awful. Why am I writing?
He's not a thrasher. And I do think that the legal training where, lawsuits and criminal and civil legal matters take forever to go through. So you do have to be able to start something, put it down, pick up something else that's progressing. We can manage those different, it's almost like running a train yard where, okay, this one, the 506 is coming. We got to put them on this track. We got to do that. And where you have to be a station master. But the thing that's amazing is while you have that ability to manage all those different things, which is a very, very sort of type A right brain thing, you also have the left brain thing to be so creative and to do that stuff. I mean, what does Daredevil have to do with Wolverine, have to do with Star Wars, have to do with, it must be very tempting when you're writing comics and things like that to do that Deus Ex Machina where you're like, where does the story go? It's like, then a lightning bolt hit and it turns out he could fly. Those stories would suck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
But you're right. The crossover between the right brain, left brain. I mean, Mitch Albom's got a little bit of that. If we're being honest, right? He used to talk about getting up at 6 a.m. and this is how much time I'm going to spend working on my nonfiction stuff, or excuse me, my fiction stuff, and then I'm going to move to this, and then this, and then this, and it's just interesting. I don't think it's a coincidence that people that are that successful in that way regiment themselves. I mean, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, in order to get stuff done, to get a lot of stuff done, you do have to sort of have a plan, and
stick, and the ability to stick to it. You say maybe the law school training. I think maybe you're drawn to that. My guess is he didn't learn how to be that way at 22.
Yeah.
He probably
Well,
had
no,
some. He probably had some of that in him at 8.
Well, yeah, like he said, he's a historian of the comics. So
Right. Exactly. So
that's really cool. If you are successful and you want to grow your money, call our buddy Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748. He's going to give you rational financial advice, tell you how to keep that money growing. What does it mean now? What's going on 6 months from now? Stocks, bonds, 401ks, 529s, all that stuff that's way over your head. Get advice, get a strategy. Call Luke Nowacki, Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748.
Because when you call that number, Luke will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Yeah.
He'll make it all about you, She-Hulk. No? Okay. Anyways, when
just stopped while you were behind.
When yeah, I know. Well, I'll never catch up. I'm still reeling because I'm like, well, what? So
yeah, I know. I can see it.
Charles Soule is.
I'm reeling because of your description of he doesn't thrash.
Charles Soule is doing
description.
all this stuff, and I'm just like, I got this book. Paul's coming.
Dude, you're a journalist. You're running a campaign.
Fishing. He's fishing for these, Sean. Don't
you know what I mean?
Don't.
Well, I will say,
more about new wave music
for
than anybody
compliments.
else in the planet.
Anybody else in the room. And that's only because Drew's upstairs. But no, I when he was talking
You're
about
wearing a Rick Ocasek tie.
Well, it's got a little skull and crossbones. But I was so eager when he mentioned Yoda because it got me thinking about Baby Yoda, and it got me thinking about our Geek of the Week, which is a guy, and I don't want to give his name out because
he's sit up there. But
he's only been charged. He's only been charged with a crime.
That's
so
a totally ridiculous jump.
He's not guilty. So I don't want to use his last name, but let's just say it rhymes with Van Lubin, which may have been what he was doing when he was doing.
Did
a
you
home
write that?
inspection.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you write that, Van Lubin? Did you actually write that down?
Of course,
that's a little Soulian.
I wrote it while I was sitting down. I sat down the whole time. I'm
you
afraid.
go. There you go.
If I tried to do as much as Charles while I was sitting, I'd probably wet myself because I'm going to have to stand up.
That's what Depends are for, baby.
I guess so. Unless you're like a bitter astronaut trying to go get your rival. Although I'm told that she didn't really wear Depends. That's a different story.
I guess that's a different story.
That's a
Sure, a urinary control device.
Depends are nice though, right?
Intergalactic myth.
Because it's warm for a minute, and that's probably a lovely feeling.
So Van Lubin,
yeah, boy.
Tell me about Van Lubin, your Geek of the
We're
Week.
so distracted. I had a real quick close to this, and now it's going to feel. Anyways,
I had to explain. By the way, I had to explain this story, which you're about to tell, to my 7-year-old. By not explaining it because she saw the picture in the news story. He's like, "What's that guy doing?" So go ahead and
that's one of those things where you say. So, when my daughters learn to drive, because we live in Detroit and sometimes people don't respect the traffic control devices. I said, "What's the most important thing you do when the light turns red?" They say, "We go forward." I say, "No. I'm going to tell you what they didn't teach in class. You count to 3 because people run through those lights. So you want to count to 3 before you move forward." The lesson for Mark's kids are when you pick up the Sesame Street toy, you inspect it closely. Because there's a gentleman from Clarkson, a home inspector, who was caught on a camera that I think the media very quaintly put it, pleasured himself with an Elmo doll. So Tickle Me Elmo is a popular and respected toy. Pleasure yourself with some stranger's Elmo is not. And that's why, guy whose name sounds like Van Lubin, you are our Geek of the Week.
Took a long time to get there.
I guess so.
Hey.
Yeah, garden variety creeper.
Hey again!
The Zodiac Spanker.
I mean, and everybody has their own thing. Just do it in your own spot, right? I mean, and you're okay.
Miss Piggy is jealous, I guess.
I mean, we've talked about this before. People dress up as 6-foot-tall bunnies.
Oh, furries. That's a big
exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not here to judge any of that.
No,
I'm judging it in some kid's
I'm not
room.
saying you guys are. I'm just saying if you stay at home and do your thing and nobody else is involved, what's the problem?
Well, there's no problem. I'll still judge it. It's weird.
Who's
Well, what if
Elmo?
you like to say a JCPenney catalog? You know what I mean?
That's weird. I'm not going to judge
like
you.
George
Cool.
Costanza
Go ahead.
with the
Still weird.
was it Glamour magazine?
Yeah.
No. I'm
more
just
of an
saying.
AARP man myself.
As
National
long as,
Geographic.
As long as you don't harm anybody else, who are we to judge? I'm just saying.
Well, we will judge, but it's fine.
Use your own Sesame Street plush. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you could make the trip to Toys R Us on your own.
It's still weird, though. I'll judge you.
Yeah. This guy's
fine. I don't care. It's weird.
Somewhere in there.
I just figure most people have proclivities they would never, ever want to share with anyone. And keep that stuff to yourself. You know what I mean?
I'm waiting for
try
somebody.
not even to imagine.
I'm waiting for somebody more clever than me to come up with a Nookie Monster reference. But that person, I think that person hung up 10 minutes ago and is glad to be away from the scene of this crime. But,
by the way, you're dressed for our next segment, so go ahead.
Oh yes, so we are in room 7609. It's great to be back in the New Wave Suite, and we are here because I was listening to the Drew and Mike podcast as hundreds of thousands of people do. The difference between the Drew and Mike podcast and the Soul of Detroit podcast is thousands of people listen to this podcast. But Mark said something that shocked me. He had no idea who Yazoo is. But Mark, you've heard Yazoo. You heard Vince Clarke from Erasure perform in room 7609. You also heard him during our Christmas music special. And you also heard Alison Moyet, who was the chanteuse with Yazoo, sing in our Christmas special. I'm pretty sure we've used her before. In Europe, they're known as Yazoo because of some copyright issues and whatever, and some other bands. In America, they're known as Yaz. But they actually are here in the New Wave Suite to talk about something that happens every time somebody calls us.
I think we experienced it today.
It's a little ditty called Bad Connection.
This morning, the curtains are shut. I'd ring you in the morning, but the phone's been cut. Can you hear me? I've been calling all day. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? The radio reporter said the line's all dead. You told me that I ought to write a letter instead. Can you hear me? I've been calling all day. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? I wish they'd fix the wires, 'cause my baby don't know that I'm leaving in the morning and I'm ready to go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Gotta get the operator, make a telephone call. And if I write a letter, it won't get there on time. I'll only reach you, baby, on the telephone line. Can you hear me? I've been calling all day. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? My car's all ready and my bag's all packed. I'm late already and I won't be back. Can you hear me? I've been calling all day. Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? I wish they'd fix the wires, 'cause my baby don't know that I'm leaving in the morning and I'm ready to go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Gotta get the operator, make a telephone call. I wish they'd fix the wires, 'cause my baby don't know that I'm leaving in the morning and I'm ready to go. Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all? Gotta get the operator, make a telephone call. Can you hear me? Can you hear
So this album, young Alison Moyet hooks up with Vince Clarke, who had just started with Depeche Mode, wrote some of their big hits off the first album, bails on Depeche Mode, gets together with Alison Moyet. They kind of knew each other. He answered an ad that she had put looking for a partner. He was the only guy who answered the ad, and it worked out pretty well with her only choice. But they never really had much of a relationship. And so after the first album, Vince Clarke is like, okay, next. Alison Moyet is like, no, we got something good going. We sold a lot of records. People are digging it. What comes next? Clarke wants to move on. The record executives say, here's a deal, bucko. Big hit with Depeche Mode after one album, you jet. Doing great with Yazoo after one album, you want to jet. That is going to hurt your reputation. So after Upstairs at Eric's, they stick around and they do another album, but then they kind of drift their own ways. But when you listen to this is the classic new wave synth band, and this is one of the more
sounded like a video game that I've played before.
Yeah, and they have some sort of weird tunes on there too that are a little bit on the concept end. But
was I supposed to know that song?
No, but you do know Yazoo because you've heard "Don't Go," you've heard "Situation," you have heard. Now you may have gotten confused. Don't go. Now that probably doesn't help you recognize it, but maybe it's because you didn't realize Yaz was Yazoo. But everybody who has ever gone to a club has heard "Situation" or "Don't Go," and you know them. And I was surprised to hear you say that. And I know
maybe you didn't go to clubs.
I'm not being a jerk. I really don't know it.
You lived in Ann Arbor at Nectarine Ballroom. Absolutely, they would have been playing that on a regular basis.
Well, maybe in the early '80s.
The Necto, as it's called now. By the way, I have a question. Why am I the only one under a light in here, and I happen to be the only one without hair?
It's not a light. That's
is that
heaven
God
shining down on you.
Yeah, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Don't worry, nobody can
Another
see it.
little thing I noticed, by the way, is of the 4 people at one point that were on this podcast earlier today, I was the only one without neatly trimmed facial hair and product.
Well,
and
are you
the
proud
hair,
of
which
that,
I
or?
don't have. No, I don't have any hair to put any product in.
Well, you
Just
did
saying,
get a
I think
haircut.
There's a correlation
Polish.
between a little bit of polish and a little bit of hard work. You know what I mean?
You did get a haircut, though, I can tell.
Well, so
Barely,
basically,
I did.
Sean,
Oh, yeah, I've been here in a month. That's true.
Unlike the rest of us, you won't be looking for a super cool haircut from a super cool place.
I don't have any haircut, but go ahead and plug this beautiful.
Well, I'm sure Lady Jane's. You got to at Lady Jane's, right?
Yeah, I think they could.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because they made you look and feel like the king that you are, Sean. You can get to Lady Jane's. There's a new one in Grand Blanc on Saginaw Road, just south of Hill Road, next to AutoZone. You can let one of their talented stylists, they're all over the place. They can give you an award-winning haircut, invigorating shampoo, hot lather neck shave, the hot towel treatment for just about $16. Pretty good. Don't procrastinate. Keep your hair looking its best. Go to Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men today. The new one on Saginaw Road, just south of Hill Road, next to AutoZone. Lady Jane's in Grand Blanc. It's wicked awesome. Of course, you can go online and see where all their locations are.
Yeah, so they
Wait, pretty good. $16. That's great, man.
I know. It's fantastic.
It's unbelievable. $16.
Yeah, now you look and feel like a king.
Now,
King Sean.
Yeah, you're going to have to cut out your $100 haircuts now as a councilman and get down to $16 yourself, right?
The John Edwards? Yeah, we won't be doing that.
No, exactly.
But
I was thinking more at Pelosi, but
I respect the COVID protocols. Talking about the hair thing, though, one of the most interesting conversations I ever sat in on in my journalism career was between David Gilkey, the late great photographer from the Detroit Free Press, and Mayor Archer, who had just left office and was just chosen as the first black president of the American Bar Association. I was doing a story about that for the National Law Journal, and I did something for the Free Press too. But while we were settling in, Gilkey was shooting it for the Free Press, and he and Archer, who were both famously bald-headed, were discussing how they kept their pate looking so good. And I think Archer told Gilkey that his secret was witch hazel. He would rub witch hazel on his dome, which kept it clean and smooth
up there?
and
Isn't that
shiny.
for hemorrhoids, witch hazel?
what about what was Gilkey's secret?
Now, he was glad to hear it. I
Razor.
think Gilkey's secret was wearing a helmet and, taking night vision photography in war zones. I mean, I think
NPR put out a book, by the way, that came out, a collection of his stuff. I wish I could remember the name of it because it's beautiful, and we got it at home.
Well, we'll put a link to it on our
Yeah, we
website,
should.
soulofdetroit.com. When people talk about the media being the enemy of the people, I think about a guy like David Gilkey, who fearlessly went to war time and time again in the midst of the battle to bring the story home to those of us who needed to know what was going on but couldn't be there, shouldn't be there, didn't want to be there, and he was killed doing the job. And when you talk about the media being the enemy of the people, look up David Gilkey, and then apologize.
And the book is Pictures on the Radio.
Thank you, Mark. Yes.
Pictures on the Radio. So anyways, that is
And he didn't have to beg Charles Soule to get it done either.
It's because a picture book is.
Really?
Listen,
okay.
Listen, Charles has got a full plate. Let's not overtax him with this Last King of Detroit. He's already talking about multi-platforms. I mean,
he was? Okay.
He needs a focus.
Yeah, he's focused, unlike me.
Yeah. No, you're not even forward focused.
No, last night, can I say this real quickly?
You can say anything you want.
Yeah, last night.
What happened?
Just to show the contrast here between all of you guys and your professional lives and your dedication and your discipline and your stick-to-itiveness. How about that?
Sure.
I'm in a Rite Aid. I'd gone. Let's just say this: I'd gone to get a salad for a family member, and I'm coming back, and I'm going to watch a little show.
No ice cream.
I stop at a Rite Aid.
But no one got high?
I needed a little, a product there, and I see some Milk Duds.
Was it Witch Hazel?
Yeah, no, it wasn't Witch Hazel. So I see some Milk Duds. So I get some Milk Duds. I hadn't been into the Rite Aid in a while, and I walk up to the counter, and the lady says to me, "Oh, you're the Milk Dud guy."
What does that mean?
And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "And you haven't been in here in a while. Are you getting your Milk Duds someplace else?" She asked me that. Are you getting your Milk Duds someplace else?
Is she confusing you with somebody else, or have you gone and got that many Milk Duds from Rite Aid?
I realized I'd gone and gotten that many Milk Duds from Rite
Really?
Aid. So this is my life, ladies and gentlemen. It's
how many Milk Duds have you gotten?
It's the pandemic. One of my favorite things to do in a normal life is to go to a movie theater and get a little popcorn, and I eat Milk Duds with it. So we've tried to recreate that at home. We make the popcorn.
How bad is it?
Get a Milk Dud. But the fact that somebody thought I was like you're going into a coffee shop and getting a tuna sandwich every day, and you're a regular, and the tuna sandwich just gets set down on the counter. That's how I was treated at Rite Aid last night.
Nice.
And then I got accused of two-timing Rite Aid. Are you getting your Milk Duds someplace else?
Wow.
How pathetic
No, they care about their customer. They want you to keep coming back. But that's pretty
And then
bad.
she tried to say, well, she was a sugar daddy person herself.
Okay.
Okay.
And she wasn't hitting on you with that?
No, name is taking a different turn.
That's
Yeah.
tales in my sad little life.
Well, so just
No, wait. The question is, are you going to avoid that now because you don't want to be known?
Because
as
I've become a regular in a pharmacy for Milk Duds.
Yes.
Now, I've heard you called
Go another
Goober
place.
before, but I don't think it had anything to do with your confectionery choices.
Oh, I just I walked out last night. Of course,
So
the parking
sad.
lot's empty. It's dark, and I'm just like, what the heck? What? Oh, okay.
It's better than being called Mr. Snowcap.
I was
Who the
gonna
hell
say,
eats those?
You could be Mr. Witch Hazel because you
But
get
how
prep
come I
H.
can't be known for getting a club sandwich or a bowl of turkey chili or
how about Mr.
or somebody that likes their eggs over easy or
I'd rather be Milk Dud guy than
or poached
turkey salad guy.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, y'all have ever been regulars anywhere at all? Well,
yeah.
you don't, Mike, because you don't pay to eat out. But how about you, Mark? Have you
Oh,
ever-
sure, without a doubt.
I eat a lot of brand. I'm regular everywhere I go. It's not a problem.
The 7-Eleven, they know you, but not
Keto
what I-
guy,
what I
right?
You
get.
walk up and they hand you a jewel without you asking.
Jewel, yeah, right. No, that's funny. I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, I used to get a ton of taquitos there. That's been done.
You're the taquito guy.
That was the career-ending guilty pleasure show. How could I ever forget?
the Mr. Kebab, the restaurant and gas station. They know me there because I order from there so much.
Oh, nice. Okay,
I love it.
I feel a little better.
Oh, you're right. I'm not a milk dud.
Eating from a gas station, Lord.
Oh my God, it's the best food.
What, taquitos?
No, the
Cheese dogs?
Mr.
station
Kebab's
cuisine?
gas station cuisine. Yeah,
Damn.
Oh, nice.
love them.
Okay.
There's a great barbecue place in Kansas City that serves out of a gas station.
See?
Oklahoma Joe's.
But that's a big
Joe's.
thing for
Oklahoma's Joe's in Kansas City.
Yeah, I know. It's actually in whatever the city is. It's in Kansas. It's not Kansas City. It's Kansas City, Kansas. Right. There's a smaller version of that. Sorry.
Oleathy, perhaps?
Oh,
now you're showing off.
Look at that, and you even pronounce it like the local.
Oh, look how proud he is.
I know.
Those of you on Facebook are missing it because we cut you off a while ago.
He is so proud of himself.
We're just with our good friends who get the full audio download. All you Facebook Live listeners, you're missing
the full audio version of the show.
Anyway, that was
when
the
Sean really shines.
That was the anti-Charles Soule story. I mean, right? I'm just showing my
Mr. Milk.
You sat down.
That
while
could be a
you told
superhero.
my patheticness. What's that?
it.
Which isn't
You
even
sat
a word.
down while you told it. And
Oh yeah.
kind of had a he Hulk feel.
Yeah,
to it.
I write 2 sentences and then I go look for a gun, and then I come back. I can't find one because I'm in Ann Arbor, and then I write a couple sentences more.
They got kind of dark.
does.
Anyway, he said, desperately seeking a way out of this situation. If you would care to support the show, you can send us a nomination for Room 7609 at mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. You can call and leave a message for us at 313-288-9070. That's Butterfield 89070. You can donate like Dave did, who sent us a double sawbuck and said, loved the Mort Krim interview. So if you missed last week's episode, there's still time to listen to it and all of our past episodes. But Mort was great on the show. He told some different stories than you may have heard on other shows, although he was great on Drew and Mike as well. Although he felt a little stiff on Drew and Mike to me.
What?
I think it's your interviewing skills.
No. I mean, I think you guys were having a lot of fun with him, and he was kind of retreating into professional Mort as opposed to, like the long story about trying to land the plane where Drew's like, hey, you're kind of crazy with the plane. He's like, well, when you have the flaps down, you want to make sure that you're checking your altimeter.
That's why he's a tough interview, because you don't know where that sense of humor.
He does have that voice, though.
He can be playful, but he can also be very, very dry. Very dry, but we do appreciate.
It's funny he remembered the laughing hyenas
and everybody who supports us here. Mark, how do people support us with giving us money? They just it's really easy.
mlsolodetroit.com, donate button, pound it.
Bang! It's
Pound
that
it hard.
easy.
Mm-hmm.
You can also please make sure you let our sponsors know that they're not wasting their time or their money advertising with us, like Red Shovel Network wide sponsor David Hall, who is helping people save money by lowering their mortgage payments. You can refinance with Hall Financial. They are still getting people deals in the 2% range. When you refinance with Hall, you save a couple payments as the paperwork is being processed, and then you save every single month because you get that new lower rate. If you want to find out how to take advantage of this great deal, go to our website where you'll find a link to their website, or give them a call at 248-308-5000. That's 248-308-5000, and make sure to tell them that ML sent you, and ML S146-7435. Thank you, David Hall. Thank you.
I don't normally comment on the commercials,
Mort.
But that commercial makes me just a little horny.
Well, saving money is sexy. All our sponsors will save you money, and they'll make you sexy, and you won't have to mess with people's toys when you go to their houses like certain geeks we know. You can also support the show
Geek's
by...
probably not the word, but go ahead. That's probably a little light.
A geek technically is someone who bites the head off a chicken. But
not Elmo.
No. Anyway, or Big
He didn't
Bird,
bite the head.
or Big Bird. You can get hoodies like Sean's wearing, our long sleeve T-shirts and beanies, all this great stuff: hats, masks, gaiters, keychains, T-shirts, hockey jerseys, stickers, and of course, signed Kwame Sutras and super groovy neon clocks. And coming up is our 100th anniversary show in a couple weeks. We're going to have a very special, super cool product that will be. Well, just check it out. You're going to love it. We had a lot of feedback, but we are running long, so we will get to your feedback next week. And we've learned over the last couple of weeks, we have to be careful about trying to accommodate Sean. Matt had a special McRib joke that I thought would be just a natural for Sean, but Sean had already dropped out of the show because he was on a call, and I think he may have actually been eating.
He was hurt. He was hurt. No, well, what do you mean accommodating? Careful about accommodating me.
There was a McRib joke, and I said, McRib,
I don't need
this
any
is
accommodation.
Sean's gonna. And then last week we found 2 excuses to work the Bee Gees into the show. And we thought, oh, Sean is going to go crazy in room 769 talking about the Bee Gees and all his knowledge of the Bee Gees. And Sean's like, gotta go. Perhaps he went to Massachusetts.
So last week it was Casey Mize' debut in front of fans, right?
Yeah.
That I had to get to, and then the week before was it Indianapolis or something?
Yep, the tournament. Mm-hmm.
Actually, a couple of weeks before, right? Because I haven't been in here in a while.
A fascinating travelogue going through Indiana. It was very good. that was
funny.
fun. Yeah, I
It
like
was
that.
Indy's a sleepy little town, but
anyway,
it's kinda
so
fun.
yeah,
it's a fun place.
Casey Mize is going to pitch, I don't know, 20, 30 times this year. We're only going to have Bee Gees in room 7609.
I know. By the way, not that this is a sports podcast, but Mize was really good last night. Okay. Yeah.
And Mantha, I really liked your column on Mantha. Tell me a little bit about Yzerman and the way he thinks, because I remember, had an interview with him just before he retired, and it was
a long time ago.
It was not an easy get, but you got it.
He's got a sort of an intensity about him, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure. So this was what 15, 16 years ago, and I'm sure he's changed a little bit. And he was still playing then. And you get into the front office, and you have to adapt and so forth. But you're just speaking about what happened with the trade the other day with Anthony
Right, but
Mantha?
I mean, when he was retiring, sometimes that's the opportunity for people to be introspective.
Oh, but he wasn't exactly.
He was like, I got 15 minutes for you, dude. I'll answer your. I mean,
but he didn't retire, so we did that because we knew there was a potential of a lockout, and he might call it a career. And I don't think he did. Right? Didn't he come back? I'm almost positive he did. I think we set that up because we thought there was a good chance.
I thought you thought he was going to get flushed in the playoffs because the Wings were kind of on the wane.
Maybe it was, but I thought he played after that. But no, but he wasn't. Was he even that introspective with me? I don't remember that being a great interview.
It was one of those things where this is a chance where sometimes even the uptight people will take a look back and say something.
And he didn't at all.
The guard has always been up.
I pulled an Elric on that story in terms of how I structured the reporting.
It was that good a story.
Well, it wasn't. I'm saying the reporting. I've traveled. This is back when newspapers had more money. I traveled all over the country with the team to sort of watch, interview people around them. I spent some time with his brother who was up in Ontario. That's where I got all the information from people around him. And then I finished with him, and I got him for 6-7 minutes in the locker room, and he didn't want to make eye contact.
And now, all these years later, now that he's the GM, I mean, do you feel like we've penetrated that barrier at all? Do we know how he thinks? I mean, this Mantha thing, when I see it, I see a guy who is underperforming, who it didn't break my heart that someone with his talent left because it seemed like we were never going to unlock it. But did you get a sense, or do you have any insights where Yzerman, who's such a perform or beat it guy, just had enough of I know it's in you, but if it's not going to come out, we're just tired of waiting.
Well, what's interesting too is he signed him to a 4-year extension 5 months ago, right?
Yeah,
not an outrageous contract, but a pretty good size contract. Yeah. But I thought that was smart too. They're like, okay, if we can't quite get it here, he's still talented enough that we have as an asset and value, and we can trade him, and they did. But I think it does. He was asked yesterday if it sends a message, his willingness to do this so quickly after he re-signed him, and or re-upped him or whatever. And he said, no, I don't know. I don't know that there's a message there, but I kind of think it is.
Yeah, it's called sunk cost.
Yeah, right.
I mean, get anything out of them, so get rid of them.
Yeah. So it's up there. But it's interesting. You're right. To your point, Mike, the kind of personalities he wants. The young guys, who are they going to be looking to? If you're coming in at 19, 20, 21, well, maybe not 19, but 20, 21, 22, what are you looking at? What kind of models do you want to day after day? You want it to be Henrik Zetterberg, or do you want it to be Anthony Mantha?
Well, the fans seem to be very happy with all his moves and all these assets.
And Mantha's a talented dude, right?
Well, which you would think there'd be some fans that were like, oh, I really liked it, but everyone's like, get what you can. Team sucks right now.
Mantha had ability to be one of the best players in hockey. That kind of talent, right? In terms of a two-way force.
Mario Lemieux's size, a lot of that strength. I was a little surprised to hear people rave about his defense. I never remembered him as a great.
Maybe not rave, but decent defense, and he had the potential to be even better defensively.
Yeah.
With that if that motor had been more.
Right, but I remember seeing him along the sidewall just kind of like, get in there, big fella, and he's sort of like watching the play. I'm like, if you want to watch the play from the boards, get a friggin' ticket because they'll bring you beer.
Well, that's the issue with the guy they're bringing in a little bit. So they're hoping to Jakob Vrana.
Yeah, but he's cheaper and he can be gone by the summer if.
Yeah, he's a restricted free agent. He's a different skill set. He's more of a speed guy and skill guy, but he got benched actually last week.
Yeah, so
in DC for puck watching and not getting in and that sort of thing. But
so
anyways,
Yzerman remains inscrutable, but I thought that was a good column. You can see all of Sean's work at freep.com. Please subscribe. It's well worth it. It's good to have Sean back in the studio.
It's a love fest in here today. I mean, you look handsome and you're smart as ever, and Mark is, steady and,
and you're full of milk duds.
Secretly sexy.
That's right.
No, it's not really secret anymore, is it, Mike? Mark is just downright sexy.
Thank you.
I'll
own it.
Like your choice of snacks, he's non-Periel. So on that high note, it's time for us to go. If you got some spare time this week, please check out Charlie LaDuff's No BS News Hour, and of course, how can you not make time for the Drew and Mike podcast? And to help you find the time to get to those fantastic shows, we're going to ask our friend Cyrus to take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
I don't see the city anymore.
Each breath you take is mine.
There's only dark corners.
I'll keep you safe. John, I have to be the man this city needs.
What are you gonna do?
Whatever it takes.
We fight every night for something. When the sun sets, we're both the same.
You and I have a lot in common. We're nothing alike.
We can't go back for nothing. Take what you need, say urban.
Sean's evil does not make you good. I respect your conviction. The lone man who thinks he can make a difference.
This darkness is the light.
I'm just trying to make my city a better place.